Greetings, greetings, greetings.
Hello,
Hello.
everyone. We're
Hi
back.
there. Yes, we are back, okay? Yes.
We're back. Can I give us a round of applause for being so consistent? I'm so proud of us.
Yes, I'm proud of us too.
This,
Listen,
yeah,
I'm sorry. I was gonna say, life is life thing. We have so much going on. School is starting. We have children. We have families. We got work. We got so much to do. And yes, I'm so proud of us for showing up. And it's so funny you said that only like you have no idea. After I was leaving from where I was at a little earlier and I was on my way home, I was like, you know what? We have really been showing up like consistently. And it's not like we don't do that in other areas of our life, but this is something that we've really been wanting to do. So yeah, I'm super proud of us too. And I love that we're like in tune today with that. Like I swear, it's so funny.
yeah. We didn't plan that at all. It was just I was like, you know what? We've really been doing this thing. So,
Yes.
thank you all to everyone who's been watching us. It's really an honor to like do this. We've been talking about this for over a year at this point about doing it, and then we finally, like, almost at the 1 year mark, just finally pulled the trigger and we're like, we're just gonna turn the cameras on and just do it. So, just a little celebration. This is our third month of doing this, and our theme this month is spiritual hygiene. And
Yes.
I know people are like, what does that mean?
Right.
So the way
Right.
I describe spiritual hygiene is kind of like the practices and things that you do to just constantly renew yourself and keep yourself connected and in that high vibration. Um, you have anything you want to add to that definition, or what do you think?
Not not really. I mean, I agree with you 100%. It is, keeping the cleanliness in our heart. It's helping us to keep our hearts as light as a feather, helping us, like you said, to stay connected to the Most High, to stay connected to ourselves, to stay connected to each other.
Right.
Okay? So, yeah.
Yeah. So we have really thought about this show, and we have some really cool things that we're doing this time that we haven't done last time. For this week, we're going to kind of be doing this self assessment of our spiritual hygiene, and kind of a like, where am I with spiritual hygiene? Do I have good spiritual hygiene where I'm maintaining this high vibration and feeling good and staying connected, no matter what's kind of going on in my life? Or is every little thing that comes my way throwing me off? And I'm speaking in the I because I am still learning how to do this. Okay. When we say we are peer guides, we are in this. Like, we are not new to spirituality, but we've kind of gotten past that initial part of like, do I believe this? Do I not? And we truly believe in this like universal spirit, this oneness, and all of that. And now it's really how do I put this into practice in my life to do something? To make my life better, to make my dreams come true, to be of service to the world. And spiritual hygiene to me is like, without it, you're not going to stay on that frequency that you need to be on. And so we're going to go through kind of an assessment of spiritual hygiene. There is a link in the description below. You can click on it, and it's just a PDF. It's real simple with the 10 questions that we're going to go through. I highly encourage you to just go into meditation with them and journal about them, or whatever you need to reflect on these questions to kind of give yourself an assessment of where you are right now. And so you're going to watch us do this like live right here, right now. We're going to go through these questions. Um, so I just wanted to ask you real quick, Uni, what do you feel are just generally like the signs of good versus poor spiritual hygiene?
Yeah, sure. So, for me, good spiritual hygiene starts with my mindset, right? So if I have, you know, positive, uplifting, but realistic, I want to be realistic at all times, positive, uplifting, realistic thought processes, thoughts that can, excuse me, I don't want to say convinced, that help me to stay encouraged to overcome obstacles, if I'm, pushing forward, if I'm resting when I need to rest, if I'm really just honoring myself. Like, I feel like that's like the real basis of
Mhm.
like really good spiritual hygiene is like I'm really tapped into myself, and I'm really like you said, like using some sort of an assessment, or doing some looking within myself to make sure that I am aligned. You know what I mean? On the flip side, I would say, any examples that I'm not practicing spiritual hygiene would be like basically the opposite: excessive negativity, being extremely critical of myself and others, feeling tired all the time, foggy, not really having a direction in life, not knowing what I want to do, being indecisive, like those sorts of things. Really, I feel like essentially any time that you are kind of like out of your flow, you know what I mean, where you are feeling stuck. And don't get me wrong, like we all need pauses to reflect, and you know what I mean, we all need time to sit back and think about things.
Mhm.
But when you start to get in those kind of down and out mindsets, and and you start saying to yourself, what are the key things? I'll end with this because I know you're gonna probably ask this question anyway. But I feel like I need to share one of the key things is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Everything that's going on within my mind, within my heart, it's gonna come out of my mouth. So when I start speaking things like, and I don't talk like this, but when I hear other people start saying things like, "Oh, I can't win for losing," or "I have no
Mhm.
luck," or "nothing ever goes right," when I start hearing those things, I'm like, friend, you need to get your spiritual hygiene in order. You know what I mean? So yeah, in a nutshell, that's pretty much what I have to share. What
Yeah.
about you, Omi?
I don't really have anything to add to that. You nailed it. Like it's
Thank
just,
you.
and I'm glad you touched on like the energy level thing because you may not be noticing that maybe your self-talk is in a certain way, or you may not notice that you feel a certain kind of way in a like emotional or mental way, but physically you can just feel drained. And when you're physically drained or you're getting sick all the time, anything like that is a to me and for me has been a key sign. But we're going to get deeper into that as we go through this self-assessment. So I'm just going to like let's just dive into the self-assessment. um so like I said, you can download a copy of the questions in the description box if you'd like. It's just a really simple 10 questions. This is not law. This is not there are probably other questions that could be asked. These are just the ones that we came up with, and that we found very useful. So if you have some to add with to that, throw them in the comments. We'd love to hear what they are. Maybe they're things that I need to consider. Again, we're your peers, not your teachers. Okay. And I have a cool new feature that I figured out. So we're gonna put the questions up on the screen so that you can see them as we
Yes.
talk about them. So that'll give you an opportunity to really dive into the questions and yourself. So let's start with the first question, which is, do I feel grounded and present in my daily life? Uni, want to take this one first?
Sure. So for me, I would say mostly yes, but there are definitely times when I don't, And I have to catch myself, I have to catch myself. I think I spoke about this last week, thinking about the past, kind of ruminating on things that have happened in the past and wishing things were different. And also, sometimes being anxious about the future because I don't want to repeat the past, you know what I
Right.
mean? So I definitely can, have some struggles with that, but I am aware of it. That's one of the key things is like really being aware of, my lack of, being present or lack of groundedness. I have spent so much time, really working on myself that I feel like when I am out of alignment, I do, feel it and I'm able to, not always quickly, but I'm able to, make some adjustments. So,
Right.
again, most of the time, yes, all the time, no. How about you, Umi? Do you feel grounded and present in your daily life?
Yeah, I'd have to say I'm pretty much on par with that. You know, there are times when I feel super present and it's very easy to stay present. You know, like when I was traveling over the summer, like it was so great to just be present in the moment and, you know, enjoy what was around me and what was happening. And that was an easier time to be present. And then there are times when you're struggling to, stay in the moment. you know Things are going on that maybe you don't like and you're like, oh, this always happens to me, or you're feeling like, oh, this is like a repeat of this keeps happening, or you get in that anxiety of, and which I've said this before on the program, that like I have struggled a lot with anxiety of, oh my gosh, what's going to come, what's happening, and always worrying about, what's coming in the future. And so I do still, have my struggles with that. I will say that I don't feel that they are as frequent as they used to be. Like the anxiety for me and living in the future, which I equate to living in the future of what's going to come, right? That used to be a every hour on the hour daily kind of thing for me. And I think that a sign of spiritual growth is that it doesn't take you as long to recognize and correct. You're not always going to be up here, but when you feel yourself coming down, do you recognize it and do you correct it, or do you just keep diving? And so, and that's going to go probably with all these questions, but like with the presence for me, that's been big. It's like, do I recognize that I'm not present, and how can I be present in this moment? you know but it happens, yeah, it still happens to me all the time. Not as
Right.
frequently. I definitely am better at it, at being present and recognizing that I need to be present. But, still struggling a little bit. Probably could use a little tune up in that area.
Look, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? That's the key element. As you know, I studied under Queen Afua for some years, and she would always talk about doing tune-ups and healing and keeping yourself uplifted. And I've heard people since then speak about you don't always have to be in healing mode. Like at some point healing
Right.
can stop. And while I do agree with that to some degree, you know what I mean? When you are in this life and you are going through experiences and you're dealing with human beings who have, their own experiences and their own, ways of being, and, just life happens sometimes, you're going to need to tune up. You're going to need to do some healing. You may need to do a little patchwork to get yourself back to where you need to be. So yeah, I love that you brought that up, because it's something that I think that most people, if we're being honest with ourselves, we have to do. We got to do that maintenance.
Right. Right. All right. Let's go on to the next question. How often do I feel emotionally drained or heavy? I'm gonna go with this one first, and then I'll turn it over to you. I just like was saying, like, this is a big indicator for me. Like with the physical health, feeling emotionally just like I can't anymore. that used to be my go-to like place. I will say I don't get there as often anymore. If I had to like scale of 1 to 5 with like it happens hardly ever being 1 and it happens all the time being 5, I would say I'm in the like, you know, like 2. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't really happen as often anymore, but the second I feel that heaviness, I know it's time to do something, you know. How about you?
I would say I'm at about the same as you, maybe about like a 1.5 to a 2. I'm pretty positive, and it's just something that this is how I am. I have my moments where I can get drained, because even like maintaining a level of positive thinking in the midst of going through different things and experiencing life, that can take a lot out of you. Being around people who don't have a similar disposition, and who are, constantly going here, and you're trying to keep it up here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, for the most part, I would say on my own, I have, very rarely do I feel emotionally drained or heavy. But when I am around other people, it can really depend. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It really depends on the circumstances and the people. But I would say for me, yeah, definitely about a 1.5 to a 2. It just really depends on like what's going on in my life, and I feel like for me, like there's definitely some things that, I've been working to overcome for a while, and sometimes the heaviness, being perfectly honest with you, comes in those moments where I'm like, geez, I've been trying to overcome this for so long, and it's still an issue. I'm
Mm,
still struggling. I'm still working through this. So, if anything, that's when it happens. And it just really depends on like what's going on. And one thing, like I said, I can definitely feel that feeling of heaviness and being drained, but I get back on my saddle, and keep going. You know what I mean? Because I
hmm.
know that there's a way. So yeah, that's pretty much what it is for me.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. I want to say that we're going through these questions and kind of doing our own personal self-assessment, and next week we're going to kind of talk a little bit more about ways to correct some of these things, different practices and things like that. So we may not be going deep into like how to I don't want to say fix. That's not really what it, but like how to course correct a little bit. Um and bring yourself back into some kind of equilibrium. But this today is really about diving into the assessment of, am I on track? Is it time for me to start a practice, restart a practice, adjust my practice? And so these are just kind of the questions that we're using to assess whether or not we need to do some work. Everybody needs to do work, but like how much
Right,
and
right.
where and what area? All
Exactly.
right. Let's get to this next question. The third question. Do I take time to connect with spirit source regularly? Um, Uni, I'll give it to you first.
Thank you. For me, yes, absolutely. Some of the things I deal with on a daily basis, I have to call on the Most High. I have to. I have no other choice.
Mhm.
The moment I open my eyes, Lord, keep me. You know what I mean? So yeah, and it's not always. I'm just joking. And I'm being real, but I'm joking about the reasons why. I'll say that I also connect with spirit and source to give thanks. To give
Right.
gratitude. Um, some of the things that I have experienced, and the things that I experienced in life, I know for a fact my mindset is always of, how can I turn this around? How can I help the next person? How can I, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
never just for me. I'm never going through things just to go through things. It's never in vain. So I'm always grateful because I know that once I, figure it out, once I get through it, I'm going to bring whoever I could bring through. I'm not a
Right.
selfish, type of person. And so I give thanks to the Most High for the challenges in my life, even while I'm, asking for help and, and strength and
Right.
all of that. And yeah, so yeah, I definitely connect with Spirit and Source regularly. It's something that I do throughout every day, all day sometimes. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I feel like in this day and age, it's something that we have to do. There's just so much around us, you know what I mean? And there's so many things that, that we may not see, we may not be aware of. And so connecting to source helps make those things visible to us so that we can work through them. So yeah, absolutely. How about you, Umi?
Yeah. Well, I definitely do take time to connect regularly. Daily. I would say definitely daily, all day, some days. Most days. I pray on a regular basis throughout the day. I would say prayer is probably um prayer and affirmation are kind of my big go-tos. I think with this question, for me, it's sometimes to what degree are you connecting, right? Because I do connect, but is it that quick in the spur of the moment, or is it um like kind of a deep, like, let me really marinate in this you know feeling, in this vibration, in this connection. And sometimes I just need that deeper connection. It's not that I'm not connecting, it's that maybe the depth of my connecting isn't enough. Whereas in the beginning of my spiritual journey, it was like I just wasn't. Like there was no real daily connection, except to like curse God for smiting me and all of those things. But before you're like awake and aware of like spiritual things, you just kind of blame God for everything. What did I do?
Why?
Why do I deserve
Right.
this? Those kind of things. And that's not really connecting, And so I definitely connect in the gratitude, especially, even in moments when I'm really stressed out. I can be aware of how blessed I am. And that is a connection of, how blessed am I that I have a house? How blessed am I that I own it? You know what I mean? That it's not something that I'm renting, that it's my physical property that I own, that has been entrusted to me to be a good shepherd and take care of it. And, you know, those are the moments that like you really enjoy having that connection. And then there's times when I'm connecting because I'm like, where do I go with this? How do I handle this? I don't know what to do. So I have those connections regularly, definitely. I think for me it's more a degree of how deeply am I connecting. So I would like to add that as like a second part of this question. Is like, do you take time to connect with spirit and source regularly, and how deeply are you connecting? So for me, it's definitely a level of like depth. It's a question of depth. Yeah.
I love that. I love that you added that on. It made me think about, in certain times where I definitely want to feel the spirit of the Most High. Like I want to feel that connection. Um, I'm a grown adult woman, and sometimes I imagine myself being cradled, by the Most High, being held, being comforted. I feel like there's ways that the Most High can only comfort us. Human
Hmm.
comfort can't even reach us that deeply. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I completely understand, and I think that you know getting closer to spirit is so beautiful because we start to see miraculous things happening. You know what I mean? We
Hmm.
start to see
Hmm.
how guided we are. We start to get synchronicities, and we start to see the alignments, and you just you're just like, okay, I live to
Yep.
fight another day or whatever. Like, you're like, okay, I got it now. Like, thank you for that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Sometimes the Most High really brings you close, and it's
Hmm.
such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, those moments are very sweet, and I think that's what brought me to that question. Is sometimes you just want to be held, and not in a human way. You want to be held by spirit, and you want to know that spirit is there. And it really does take getting quiet, getting still and just feeling into it. Like it's something that I struggled with in the beginning of my spiritual journey, because it's not something somebody can explain to you. You have to experience it to know it.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, that's definitely a big one for me. So, all right. Next question. This one is something that you kind of mentioned in the beginning of the program when we first started talking. How often do I notice my inner dialogue and gently redirect if it's negative? Uni, want to take it?
Well, I will say that I'm still working on the gentle part. I can say. I'm just being honest, okay? I'm still working on the gentle part, okay? I am. But I definitely notice when my thoughts are not in alignment.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I've realized, as I've gotten older is that, and it's so cliche, but it's so true that everything that happens on the outside of us is a reflection of what's going on the inside of us, you know? And so when I start to see, reflections of myself where I'm like not comfortable or I am not feeling, the things that are being said or done that are around me, if there's chaos around me. And, don't get me wrong, like we all go through challenging times. Like, life isn't always, roses, and even roses have thorns, but life isn't always roses and, sweet things all the time. But I feel like for me, I have to observe what's going on around me sometimes, like because I won't
Mm-hmm.
realize that I'm being negative or I'm being, I'm having, an inner dialogue that is, not conducive to, my highest good at the end of the day.
Right.
So thinking about that, looking at my surroundings will help me to, and once I go within and reflect, and I'm just like, yeah, I was being really critical of myself and critical of others, and really catching that. You know what I mean? Like people
Mm-hmm.
don't realize, like you think that it's just going on in your mind, but it's really not. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
are a creator. You are an extension of the Most High. You're one with the Most High. So, we are creating our realities in real time, just by thinking sometimes,
Right.
just by our inner dialogue. So, yeah, I definitely make sure that I am paying attention to what's going on around me. And if I start to, have, thoughts that are not productive, like, they're not really getting me anywhere. If it's not, getting me like a good solution, like if I'm not getting a good solution or resolution to what's going on, then I know that my inner dialogue is not in alignment. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So I have to really take a step back and like think about what I'm thinking about and what I'm saying and what I'm feeling and like what's really going on here. And like you said, sitting in silence and meditation and prayer and all those things and even chanting as we've chanted together,
Mm-hmm.
even those things really help you to clear your inner dialogue and help you to hear yourself because a lot of times we don't hear ourselves. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I would say for me a big thing is silence for sure. In addition to observing my surroundings, I get really quiet. I turn
Mm-hmm.
the TV off. Put the phone down. I drive with no music sometimes, and the car is silent. And I'm just listening to, what I'm saying and what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. And it really helps me to redirect. And like I said, it's not always a gentle redirect. That's something that I'm working on. Still being more patient with myself, still reparenting, and
Mm-hmm.
and loving myself in that way. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it for me. What about you, Umi? How do
Oh
you? Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say I agree, and like I kind of feel the same way um that you do about how I'm not very gentle. I'm not always gentle. Um, I've had moments. Here's a funny thing that happened to me just this week. Right, I'm homeschooling my youngest now, and so he's around a lot. And we were in the kitchen, and I was doing something, and I like forgot to do something, and I was like, "Oh, stupid," talking to myself out loud. And he heard me. He goes, "You're not stupid. Don't say that about yourself."
Aww,
And I was just like,
aww,
"Oh wow, and it not that I believe I'm stupid, but you know what I mean? Like it was just a habit of, I did something. Oh, you stupid. You know what I mean? Like, but those little moments really they add up over time when you have them. And to have my son catch me, it was like,
mm,
"Ooh, I got to set a better example." And I had to make myself say out loud, "You're right. I'm not stupid. I shouldn't talk to myself that way."
right,
But yeah, these little teachers that we have all around us, they're really but it
right.
literally just happened this week, and I was like, "Ooh," because I felt like I'm kind of more on top of my self-talk. I um affirmations were really big for me getting out of depression because I was really deep in it, and my self-talk was really negative, to the tune of, "I don't think I need to be here anymore. I was a mistake. I was," like that negative of self-talk. And I really changed it around a lot with affirmations and affirmative prayer. Um, and I mean, to the point where like I used to have affirmations all over the house. All over the house. I had little stickies. I had big stickies. I had stickies all over the house. I used to do it. And when my daughter was little, she used to like put them because I had them like on the wall, and she would just put hers up on the wall too.
Aww.
I have pictures of back when we used to do this all the time, and I don't do it as much anymore. I actually have crayons to write on the mirror, and I used to do
Mm,
it in the kids' bathroom, and now Christy, my wife, she does it in our bathroom too. Like, anytime we're really working on something or we notice a pattern, we'll write an affirmation on the mirror to
I
combat
love
that
that.
thought. And I said we weren't going to talk about practices, but these are some of the practices that I've implemented to try to correct these things. But it's interesting to me to notice that even though I felt like I was on top of it, and I do very often notice, I didn't realize that I was still, having some of that negative self talk and also not being so nice to myself
Mm,
about it. And so that is one that I definitely feel like I could use some work on. It's not as bad as it was, but definitely I have some ways to go. Like I really do tend to not be so nice to myself when I catch it. Um, Another thing I wanted to say about this particular question is, how often do I notice my inner dialogue and gently redirect if it's negative? We're not talking about toxic positivity. We're not talking about like something bad is going on in your life and you're feeling bad about it and you're telling yourself, "But this is really good." No, that's not it. Yes, there may be always a silver lining or a bright side that you can look at, but you can honor feelings. And that's part of the gentleness, right? Is when you're angry about something, it's okay, you're angry, you blew up, right? And now your inner dialogue is saying, oh, you always do this, it's so wrong, like you can't, you're such a bad person for doing, you know what I mean? It's not like that you don't acknowledge that maybe you wanted to change that behavior and you say, oh well, you know, whatever, it is what it is, or you just try to be super positive about, well, I'm gonna do better, you know, next time, so this time, you know, or whatever, you know, it's not that. I just want to say that because it's, you know, okay, you didn't do so good this time, you're recognizing it, you can change this behavior, you know, you can also atone for the mistake. You can say to the person like, yes, you were wrong, but also I was wrong for the way I reacted, you know. There are ways to handle it that are not on that, like, oh, I'm just gonna be super positive about every toxic positivity to the point of, you know, oh, it doesn't even matter that I was mean because I'm just gonna be positive and eh, no, you can
Mhm.
process emotions and have emotions. You don't have to be mad at yourself for being angry or sad or any of those things. Like, we're not talking about positivity in like, oh, I'm just going to pretend that I'm not angry or pretend that I'm
Right.
not sad or pretend that this thing didn't happen. No, honor it. But you don't have to be so hard on yourself about it. And you don't have to ignore it either. So I just felt
Right.
like that was important to note.
I agree. Yeah, 100%. Like, we are given these range of emotions for a reason. You know, we're here to feel these things. We're here to process. We're here to learn. We're here to experience, you know. Um, Constantly ignoring and overlooking and basically not paying attention and being present with ourselves is very, very, very dangerous, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people tend to find ways to get that energy out one way or another. You know, this is how addictions are born or fed. You know, this is how you know, violence happens. You know what I mean? Like, this is real stuff here. You know, you have to process your emotions so that you can handle things in a you know, in a productive manner and move on, you know, to something else. Because if not, if you don't process it, then it's gonna come back. You're
Right.
gonna have, one way or another, you gotta, that's the
Got
thing
to deal
about
with it.
emotions. Yeah, you gotta deal with it one way or another, you know.
Yeah,
So yeah.
totally. All right. Where are we? We are on question 5. Am I creating space for rest, silence, or prayer? I want to say and prayer. I should have, that's what we should have put
Yeah.
there. You want to start?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. 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 You know, there are days where I am home resting on, you know, a Wednesday, the middle of the week, and I'm like, you know what? I need a nap. I need rest. I need to sleep, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I need silence, you know, and definitely I need prayer, you know. So I definitely have spaces for those in my life because, you know, as I've gotten, you know, older, and honestly, you know, this is why you know, one of the reasons I'll say why I agree to, you know, really lift my voice and share some of these things, because I feel like, you know, we need, you know, people who have experienced certain things to share with the younger generation. You know what I mean? Like, I wish I had known how important silence was when I was younger. You know what I mean?
Right.
And rest, you know, or when people told me that I didn't deserve rest, and you know, I need to come into work when I'm
Right.
literally exhausted. You know what I mean? And they're
Yep.
not honoring me, so I can't honor me. I wish I ran away from those people. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I needed that, and I will tell anybody who is, you know, younger, older, my age, or whatever. don't allow anyone to do that to you. You know what I mean? Make sure that you are honoring yourself, honoring your spirit, getting, time for rest, and you need it. We live in a world that is like nonstop. Like we work 5 days a week and we have 2 days off to do chores and run errands, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
we don't get time to rest. And I was
Yeah.
thinking about this recently about how harmful that really is. Like I said, last week or the week before, quarantine really opened my eyes to a lot of things, really being able
Right.
to sit still about how important rest is, how important silence is, how important it is to hear myself think. So I'll say absolutely I do. And, I'm trying to create more space for rest and silence and prayer,
Right.
to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I urge everyone else to do the same. What about you, Umi?
Yeah. So we talked a lot about like making space for silence and prayer, throughout the show, but that rest one is huge. Rest is huge. I didn't realize really how important rest was until quarantine. That was really it. Like I always knew I needed sleep. It's been a theme for the past like 25 years of my life of like not getting enough sleep. And, you know, especially in like my early 20s when partying was all I ever wanted to do. And particularly with my mental health, because I've struggled with really, really bad mental health, depression, anxiety, PTSD, to the point of hospitalization. I'm not afraid to admit that. I've been hospitalized a few times for my mental health, and being told by doctors like you need to protect your sleep, like you need sleep. Sleep is just going to make your mental health worse. And when you're young, who needs to sleep? And then um, that was like my 20s, and then in my 30s, it was more like well, I'm so busy, I have to work, and I'm a mom, and we already know moms are overworked, period, whether they work outside the home or not. And then so that was most of my 30s, and so once I got to like 40, it was like, look, I go to bed at a certain hour, and if I don't get my full 8 hours sleep, I'm no good to nobody. I'm not any good to anyone at all. I don't even like me right now because I need sleep, you know, and not just sleep, but also wakeful times of rest where you
Mm-hmm.
get to just relax, where you get to just do nothing. You can have that silence. Silence is a form of rest, and that, like, and I used to be a lawyer, so there's no such thing as rest when you're a lawyer. And so when I stopped being a lawyer and I started to literally just have this opportunity of, let me take my lounge chair. I don't know if you can see them, they're back there, but like lounge chairs, and just put my lounge chair out in my yard, especially when I got my chickens. And I just sit out there and just like observe the chickens. That's it. Just sit there and observe the chickens. And it's something that ebbs and flows in my life because I feel like I have busy times where I get back into that mode of do, and I have to go, oh yes, I need to prioritize my rest. And my body will tell me. My body will say, no more. You're not doing this. Not today. So do I regularly create space for rest, silence, and prayer? Yes, absolutely. When I see it start to ebb and flow is when I know that like I need to get back into the practice. I need to really get on this spiritual hygiene thing and take care of myself. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it right now. All right. Where are we now? So number 6. Do I feel connected to a sense of purpose or meaning? Yeah, I like this question. I like this question a lot. I'll let you go first and then I'll chime in.
Okay, thank you. I do. I do every day more and more. I'll say that I've always been like that type of person to like do things purposeful. Like I'm a child of God, you know, at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day. I always have been. I always want to share love. I always want to do the right thing. I always want to uplift my people. I always want to contribute like that, you know, that is the purpose for me. It's love, it's community, it's sharing, it's you know what I mean? Like that's what
Yeah.
life is really about to me. And you know I had to you know kind of separate myself from individuals who were not like-minded like that, or they weren't like-minded like that with me, you know, so that I could find people who were on the same page. You know, I believe in, you know, the more good we share with each other, the more we can change the world. We can shift the frequency. We can uplift the vibrations. Like I know these things. I have seen it with my own two eyes. So you can't tell me that it's not possible. And so, you know, that's just a big part. That's, I've just always been like that. And you know, working with you on this channel, Earth School Journey has definitely given me a greater sense of meaning. You know, since we have, you know, sat down and really thought about, you know, what life meant to us and how we wanted to share it with, you know, our community. And, you know, this has definitely given me greater purpose and meaning. And you know, after we started speaking about, you know, Earth being a school and, you know, life being this journey that we're all learning lessons and transcending and transmuting karma and all those good things, I started to hear more people talking about it. You know what I mean? So that made me feel even more connected, you know, to this because it's like, wow, like more people feel this way. Like this isn't necessarily something that you know, we maybe we heard it a few times, but it wasn't something that we were hearing that often. And it's like now it's everywhere. Like more people are waking up and understanding that you know we're really here to overcome some things and push the collective forward and really do some really good work here, and we need each other to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, short answer. I absolutely do, and I'm so grateful. What about you, Umi?
Yeah, I definitely do feel connected to a sense of purpose. I think I sometimes struggle with how to execute that purpose, which is, you know, this channel was definitely one of those things that this is one way that I'm kind of living that purpose is to share on this channel and with you. And there are other kind of modes and methods of expressing that purpose, and one of them is this channel, but then there's others. There's writing, there's, you know, so many different things that I can do, and sometimes I don't know which one I need to do in the moment. And so um I sorry, I got little people running around. Uh, so yeah, I do. That's part of my purpose right there. Um, I do feel
Absolutely.
very connected to a sense of purpose and meaning. I think that is one that I'm pretty strong on now, and I don't have a whole lot to add. I do remember not feeling a sense of purpose or meaning, and that was, you know, the depression days of like, what am I doing here? I don't understand what I'm supposed to do, or I may not always understand exactly how I'm supposed to do something to achieve my purpose, but I know my purpose. And I feel my purpose is to like be a light in the world, to, you know, and that is with my kids, that is with my neighbors, that is with everybody here on YouTube who watches and comes across this channel, with my friends, with you know, to just be a light. And there are different ways that we can go about that, but the ultimate for me is to just to be expressing the light of God as myself, this unique person, whatever that light is. And so, yeah, I definitely feel really deeply connected to my purpose now.
I love that.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So, all right. We're really getting through these. We only have
Are
like,
we?
we got 4 more and we only have 10 minutes. So we're going to try to get through these. We're trying to honor our time frame, you know? Okay.
Right.
Oh, this is a really good one. Am I holding on to energies, grudges, or emotions that don't serve me? Ugh. Ugh. This is one of those um I let a lot of stuff go, right? But then it's like, oh, I thought I got rid of that. I thought I was over that. I This is where I have to do forgiveness work like multiple times for the same thing, because it comes back up and I'm like, I thought I was over that. But it happens. It happens all the time where like I'm like, oh, I, I got to do that forgiveness work again. I got to let that thing go. It's like a constant practice of letting go of things, of energies, of emotions, of, you know, particularly like hurts, past hurts, people who have hurt me, like letting go of those things. I think that I'm definitely better at it, and I do let go of a lot. I still have some things, you know, that pop up. Um, I like to give concrete examples. So, like, one example I think would be like, uh, there was a contractor who ran off with money when we were trying to build our house. And every time I'm in this house and it feels so small, because we ended up buying a smaller house just to have you know, a house. And every time I'm in this house and it's so small, I get this feeling of like, oh, if he just wouldn't have done what he did, right? And then I have to go back and do that forgiveness work all over again. Because I get you can it just pulls me into a bad place, and I'm just stuck in this energy of like being upset over this. And who's it hurting? Because not him. This is really the this question reminds me of that saying, like holding on to a grudge or whatever. It's like drinking poison and expecting it to kill the other person or hurt the other person. Yeah, that's what this
Mhm.
reminds me of. How about you?
Yeah, me, I'm gonna be honest with you. I can't sit up here and say that, I, was at a, maybe a job, or I was in a relationship, or I was dealing with family, or I had friends or whatever for X amount of years, and after a year or two, it's gone away. You know what I mean? Like, I can't say, oh, I was maybe I had a friendship for 10 years, and they did something, or did some things that were really unkind to me over the years, when I was really really just wanted a friend. You know what I mean? And I, maybe I was overlooking certain things, so I had to take responsibility for my part. I could have, maybe left, or whatever the case may have been. But you know, healing doesn't necessarily happen overnight. Letting go doesn't happen overnight,
Right.
and I've had to be honest with myself about that. And there's also been times where I've kind of gotten on myself, because I'm like, oh, just remember the good times, uni. Like you said, like sometimes that toxic positivity, where I'm like, oh, I just got to be grateful for what it was, and it wasn't all bad, and so on and so forth. But it wasn't all good either,
Right.
and like I said earlier, you have to be realistic, because if you're not, it's gonna come up in some way, shape, or form. And so, yes, there's definitely things that I hold on to, because I feel like, I wrote about this, And I spoke about how, it is so easy to remember, you know, you know, things that were done to hurt us
Mm-hmm.
because there's pain. It's like it's pain. Like sometimes you actually feel the physical pain. Like you feel the pain, you feel the slight, you feel the disappointment, you feel the rejection. You feel like those things give you a physical reaction. And while happy, memories and interactions, positive interactions give you feelings too, that sting that you get from, certain things, it does something just it gets in your tissue a little bit deeper. You know what I mean? Like it does
Yep.
something to you. And so, it can be a little bit more of a challenge to let those things go. And so, I give myself grace, because I'm learning and I'm growing. And, I just try to do the best I can. But yes, there's many grudges, many emotions. Let me just be clear for anybody. If you know me, just
Yep.
understand I'm still working on it, okay? Look.
Me too, my friend. Me too.
I'm
Yeah.
just gonna be honest with you, okay? I'm still working on it. It's
Yeah.
not something that I want to, because I feel like not everybody does things on purpose. Some people are doing things that they were taught. Sometimes they don't really know the extent. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. You know what I mean? Sometimes they
Right.
really don't know that what they're doing is really, really harmful. Sometimes they do, but that's not really my battle to figure out. That's for the Most High to figure out. But I try to leave a little bit of grace for that as well. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, it can be a challenge. Yeah, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. And it's interesting. I was over on the other property today, and my black walnut trees are they're
Aww,
like
I love
fruiting,
it.
like they're ready, they're ripe, that's ready. And I don't know if you know what black walnut is, you know what black walnut is and what it has to do, but it has
Yeah,
to do with releasing like these grudges and
yes,
ties and emotions. And it's just this question, I didn't realize how much was stuck,
yeah,
you know? And I think something I'd like to point out to people is that sometimes your physical health is tied to this because there's stuck energy and stuck emotion in your body, in your physical being. Um, and I don't want to be an oversharer, but also I want to be really real with people. So like I'm a sexual abuse survivor. So my womb has been a big area of like healing because of all the energy that was stuck from that situation, from that, you know, and and so in my adult life, really cleansing that has been a big deal for me, and making sure that I'm releasing, all of that has been stuck. And even though there may not be conscious memories of things, it can be stuck in your body. So, I'd love for us to explore practices because this is a real deep one. This could be a whole show.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. In the interest of time, let's keep moving. Do I regularly engage in practices that cleanse or renew me? This goes to the last question.
Right, right, absolutely. It does. It
Yeah,
does.
now I do. I feel like I do now. I think I'm really good. I'm good about my like new moon and full moon rituals, which really keep me in that process. Spiritual baths, spiritual showers sometimes because time is limited. Uh, but yeah, no, I definitely do these more regularly now. How about you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just don't know where I would be, without my baths, my showers. I still sage and Palo Santo and, all that good stuff.
My sage
Um,
pot.
yeah, right. Going out into
Yep.
nature, forest bathing is a huge thing. Smelling the roses, smelling the flowers, smelling the leaves, taking a twig and breaking it. Because there's some trees that are have beautiful smells. Like
Yeah.
you'd be surprised. You just take a twig and smell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pine trees smell amazing, and they're all around us. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And so those are ways that I spiritually cleanse and renew myself. Sometimes like I said, I go find a pine tree and I snap the twig and I'm just like, oh, it's a
Yeah.
whole new world. I feel, you know what I
So
mean? It's
refreshing.
right. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I sweat. Sweating is another, way that I cleanse and renew my energy. I have a portable sauna in my house, and so I get in that and
Nice.
I sweat really good, and it feels so good. I get out and I stretch and maybe do some yoga and or just lay across the floor and just stretch, and I feel amazing. One thing, speaking of the womb, I wanted to mention our inversions. I was reminded of inversions recently. I was like, geez, I haven't been doing my inversions. So I laid on my bed and hung over the side upside down. And I'm telling you, I feel, I got up
Right.
feeling so much better. You know what I mean? I, got fresh oxygen and blood to my brain. I allow gravity to allow my blood to flow in a different direction for a while to cleanse my thoughts, to cleanse my wounds, to really give me a new perspective. And so, yeah, I am real big on
Yeah.
spiritual cleanses and things.
Yeah. 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 All right. Oh. How often do I feel joy, lightness, or gratitude? Uni.
I would say quite frequently. Like I said earlier, I have a pretty happy, joyous, light disposition
Mm-hmm.
in life. I really do. I definitely have my moments where I'm just like, like I
Mm-hmm.
just, because I get frustrated too. I get frustrated that things aren't, as like the utopia that I see in my mind.
Right.
But otherwise, I do feel, I feel amazing most of the time. How about you?
Yeah, I definitely feel joy and lightness and gratitude quite frequently. It's been really sweet, in the past couple of years. I think as I've really deepened my spiritual practice and my belief, it's I've had moments because I've had a pretty rough life. Like prior to I would say prior to the pandemic, that was the turning point in my life. Really, was during the pandemic. Like I'm sure someday we'll go into details about kind of how that went down for both of us, but ever since then, now I really do have these moments where it's just the littlest thing. Like right now, I can see the sunset, like the golden, the moments of that, like the joy of like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I get to experience this. Things of like, I'm married to a woman. Like, y'all don't know at 44 how exciting it is to like be living in that truth,
I love
to
that.
be living in that truth and not feel like I have to hide who I am and to be
Mm,
authentic. Like, wow, it's such a light and joyful feeling because, for a good part of my life, I was afraid to even admit to myself that I liked women and that I was gay and that, that was the life that I felt, most comfortable in. And so, yeah, this one hands down every day,
right.
every day, every day. And And I think it's being able to connect with these moments that like kind of some of the other questions that point out to me that I'm not in alignment is when I start to feel, some kind of way about stuff going on. It's like, oh, but girl, look where you are. Look at this. Do you understand? Like, you have a garden, you have chickens, like, you have a wife, you have, and that's again not a toxic positivity thing of like, okay, the other things I'm experiencing are wrong or not good or I shouldn't be feeling them, but it's a beautiful, like, look at it in the grand scheme of things, and I really do feel such joy to just be authentically me, So
Beautiful.
that's
I love that.
that's where I am with that.
Aw.
So our final question.
Okay.
Here we go. Do I feel aligned with my highest values in daily choices? Ooh. Now, why are you hiding? You don't want to answer this one.
Look, no, you sprung this one on me. Look, I was ready for all the other ones. This one, I don't think I saw. Who approved this? Who approved this? Wait.
I don't remember that from the pre-meet. What happened?
Right, right. Look. um, I'll say for me, no. Just no. I'm be honest, no. I could, while I have made improvements in a lot of areas in my life, I acknowledge that. I give myself, credit and a big pat on the shoulder for that. I've made some really big improvements in my life for sure. But I am definitely not in alignment with my highest values when it comes to my daily choices. I'm not. Sometimes I watch Netflix for hours on end, and I'm like, I could have been doing something else with that time. Maybe I'm tired or whatever. Giving
Mm-hmm.
myself that grace as well, because sometimes you need just to Netflix and chill. Like sometimes there's nothing wrong with that, but in the grand scheme of things, no, just no. I got some work to do. I do. I promise. That's all I got to say. I'll
Okay.
keep this one short. That's
Okay.
it.
Okay.
How about you? How about
Understandable.
you?
I'm gonna say more often than not, but it's like
Mm,
51-49. You know what I mean?
mm,
Like, I do feel like I still have a significant amount of work to do with feeling like I'm making daily choices that are in alignment. You know, I'm doing well with that, but I do feel like I still have a long way to go.
yeah.
It's easier in certain instances than others. I find, like, with my eating habits, right? Like, I want to eat clean. I tell myself to eat clean. I tell myself I'm going to eat clean. I may even go out and buy all the food, and then I want chocolate, and then I want something that I'm not supposed to eat.
Right.
And that's a silly, kind of, not really silly, but it's a small example. But things like, am I choosing to be kind? Um am I choosing to always, you know, do my actions actually, like, reflect what's going on the inner, you know? Am I, if I'm saying that I'm so tapped in, tuned in, you know, am am I reflecting that in my personal relationships? Am I, I say it's kind of, like I said, 51-49. Like, it's not really 50-50 because I do feel like more often than not I'm choosing to be in alignment, but I feel like I still have a good amount of time where it's like, it's a backtrack kind of thing where I react and then I have to go back and make a better choice. And that's a good, it's good that I'm in that point of like, well, I'm noticing it more and then I'm trying to course correct. I would like to get to the point where I don't have to course correct so much. Like I really would like to get to that point of like not feeling like I need to constantly correct something that I've yeah, I don't like having response like not responses, reactions rather than responses. You know,
Mhm.
I don't like when the triggers kick in and I have
Mhm.
to then because when the triggers kick in, you're not even making a choice. You're allowing your ego to make the choices for you. And I don't want my ego making choices. I want my higher self to be what's coming through. And so,
Right.
5149, you know,
That's good.
5248.
That's funny.
So yeah, I still have some work to do in that area. Definitely probably need to tighten up my spiritual hygiene a little bit in that area.
Mhm.
Well, that was our last question. So this is just right. This has been, this has been really good to like kind of talk through these things aloud with someone. I think I would encourage our viewers to, get a buddy, go talk, have a conversation about these things, or just take it in your quiet time, have a conversation with God about it. It's a great way to do it too. Um, yeah. So I think we both have kind of through our conversation acknowledged that we have work to do on our spiritual hygiene. Like we really do have some work to do. We've made progress. We're in a good place, maybe, but we want to be better. We want to be our best self. We want to be our highest self. And so I really encourage everyone out there to this is the kind of work we're talking about when we say, like, you got to do the inner work so that you can be better in community, so that you can be your highest self in community, so that you can be your higher self for yourself. It's not always about everybody else. You want to show up for you too. And so that's really all I have to say to kind of wrap up. We are going a little long today on this one, but it's all been good. Uni, do you have anything you want to like add before we wrap up?
I just want to tell everyone thank you so much for watching. Thank you for those who are going to catch the replays. Feel free to answer any of the questions in the comments. We'd love to chat with you about your spiritual hygiene, and maybe we can offer you some tips on how to get in alignment. Because while again, we're being honest about where we are, we still have some really good tools in our toolbox. That can help not only ourselves but you. And it's always about what you know. I remember I was working with someone one time, and they were like, maybe you don't always have the answer right now, but you know where you can go to get the answer. You know what I mean? That's the
Mm-hmm.
most important thing. So if there's anything you all want to share, and if we can offer any tips or any resources or any assistance or anything like that, yeah, please, 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 please share in the comments, and we will do our best to point you all in the right direction as we are pointing ourselves and each other. I just had the vision of the little girl who gets on the slide, and first she pushes her dad down and then she pushes herself down. It's like, like sometimes you gotta push yourself down that slide. That's really where I feel like I am. And like you said, Umi, we've come so far, but we still got some ways. We could tighten up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Need a little tune up here and there.
Just
Definitely. Thank you all so much. We appreciate everyone who watches. Please come back next week. We're going to get more into some of the practices, a little deeper about some of the ways that we course correct. We did kind of go into them briefly today, but we'll go into them a little deeper next week. But yeah, thank you. Blessings, blessings, blessings to all of you. Peace. We appreciate you. Till next time. Bye.
bye.